Now, the 3 Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Garrity.
And welcome, everyone, to the Friday edition of the 3 Martini Lunch, brought to you today by SaneBox. Get control of that ever-bulging email inbox. SaneBox is your answer. And right now, we've got a great deal for you. Go to sanebox.com/martini for your no-obligation 2-week trial. Plus, through us, you can get an additional $25 in credit. sanebox.com/martini. We have good, bad, and crazy news for conservatives to round out the week, starting with the good. And the good news is the Obama administration's story about the mere and sheer coincidence of this shipment of $400 million in euros and Swiss francs on pallets in the middle of the night on an unmarked cargo plane had nothing to do with the release of American hostages. President Obama at the Pentagon yesterday trying to pour cold water on the idea that this was a ransom payment, and here's what he said.
We do not pay ransom. We didn't here, and we won't in the future. Precisely because if we did, then we would start encouraging Americans to be targeted, much in the same way that some countries that do pay ransom end up having a lot more of their citizens being taken by various groups.
And Obama said it just happened to be at this exact same time government lawyers advised them to end their legal battle with the Iranians and fork over the money from the failed arms deal back in the 70s. And it just so happened that the transfer of money happened the exact same time the hostages got freed. Not exactly a coincidence. And now we've got testimony from Saeed Abedini, Pastor Abedini, who was one of the hostages in Iran. He was a guest on the Fox Business Network with Trish Regan on Thursday, Jim, and he explained how it took a lot longer to leave Iran than they originally thought. And that's because they were waiting for another plane before the hostages were allowed to leave.
They told us we were going to be there for 20 minutes, but it took like hours and hours. We slept at the airport, and when I asked them why you don't let us go, because the plane was there, pilot was there, everyone was ready that we leave the country, they said we are waiting for another plane, and until that plane doesn't come, we never let you go.
Jim, he says they got there about 2 or 3 in the afternoon to leave, and they thought that was going to take about 20 minutes to get off the ground. They didn't leave till 10 o'clock the next morning because they were waiting for this plane. He didn't say that they ever mentioned anything about money to him, but pretty hard to figure out that this is just a coincidence.
The fact that they were not allowed to leave until the money was on the ground. It kind of seems like a good leading indicator. I saw a chyron, those words at the bottom of the screen on CNN earlier this morning, quote, U.S. sent $400 million to Iran on same-day prisoners released. Now, if you show that to the average American, the average American is not stupid. The average American, if you tell them it's totally coincidental, it just so happened to do that. You played some of the audio from that Obama press conference or his statement at the Pentagon yesterday. I love the part where he said, if we'd done this through traditional banking channels and transferred the money, I don't think it'd be that much of a story. I don't understand why everyone seems it's such a big deal done in cash. Because cash is untraceable, right? If you transfer it through a bank record, there's a record of it. And oh, by the way, at that time, it was illegal to send a lot of money to Iran. It was against U.S. law. So they just happened to have a big pile of cash sitting around. In a movie, when you see somebody with a giant briefcase full of cash, are they buying real estate? Are they buying a company? Is this a normal large purchase? Or are they generally drug dealers? Are they generally up to no good when they have a suitcase full of cash? Because there's no financial records created in that. So, again, the president talks to us like we're stupid. A giant golden opportunity for the Republicans, and hopefully they will make some good use of it if they can stop hallucinating security footage. So.
Yes, I saw Donald Trump reacting to this on Thursday, and I believe his entire depth of reaction was after he explained what happened was, what is going on, what is going on, what is going on. So that's the type of...
None of those are bad questions.
It's a good question. You would just like a little more depth in the response and the reaction to it, I'm guessing.
My only hope, Greg, is that when the media coverage, like brutal but fair... I would say when they say, Trump claims to have seen security footage that either doesn't exist, or if he happened to get it in a security briefing, then it was highly classified and he's not supposed to be talking about it. But in either scenario, he talks about seeing footage of the United States government shipping giant amounts of money, of cash money to Iran on pallets. And I'm hoping that Americans hear that. And when they say, can you believe what Trump is saying? That they're like, wait a minute, we were shipping giant chunks of money on pallets to Iran? Hold the phone here. We'll back that up about 5 seconds. That seems like a big deal. So hopefully this will actually resonate. We should know better than to count on that. But it does kind of indicate, I think I'd said this on CNN earlier this week. If you're sick of this administration and you feel like they never play straight with you, there's really no reason to think Hillary Clinton is going to give you a dramatically different era of openness and honesty in foreign policy.
No. Hillary Clinton in that region is a dumpster fire beyond compare. So buckle up, America. But speaking of Donald Trump and where he stands in the polls following the two conventions, let's just say it's not good. You might have seen some of these state polls in addition to the national polls that show him down by 10 points in the Fox poll and Hillary Clinton north of 50% in the CNN poll. Trump is also in big trouble in some of the key swing state polls in states that he absolutely has to win. He's down by double digits in New Hampshire, down by 17 points in a WBUR poll there. He's also down by 11 points in a Franklin and Marshall poll in Pennsylvania. And while that is certainly not good news in the sense that it looks like Hillary Clinton could well be the next president of the United States, it's also terrible news a little bit further down the ballot. This is from The Hill. New polls showing Hillary Clinton opening up big leads over Donald Trump in two key battlegrounds has sparked alarm among Republicans who worry he will sink their Senate majority. Trump has had a bad 2 weeks, and the damage is starting to show in New Hampshire and Pennsylvania, two crucial swing states. Republican strategists and neutral political experts say that if Trump loses by 8 points or more in states with competitive Senate races, he will likely take the Republican incumbents down with him. They say if he can keep it close, then Republican incumbents at least have a good chance of winning. But if he craters, it's the end of the story. In that same poll that showed Clinton ahead of Trump by 17 points, Kelly Ayotte is losing to Democratic Governor Maggie Hassan by 10 points, 50-40. And over in Pennsylvania, that same Franklin and Marshall poll shows Katie McGinty, the Democrat, one ahead of Pat Toomey. Toomey only at 38%. Jim, you don't like Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump hurts the Republican Party, you're going to be even more mad at him. If he takes Pat Toomey with him, I don't know what you're going to do.
Yeah. That was my warbling yarp of rage. Look, just for perspective, you don't have to have a terrible year to lose a bunch of seats down ticket that you feel like you ordinarily would have a good shot at. Look at 2012, Mitt Romney lost 51% to 47%. Deeply disappointing to a lot of Republicans, but even more, there were a bunch of Senate races that year that Republicans, in red states like the Dakotas and places like that, places where Romney won. And the Republican Senate candidate, performed badly. Indiana, where I believe it was Murdoch, a bunch of winnable races were hurt. Now, that's in a scenario where the Republican is losing by 4. If Trump loses by more, and it's more of a 2008 scenario, even in that one, that basically it was about close to 53% to 45%. That's about 8%. And that was really bad for Republicans, and that's where the Democrats came really close to getting a filibuster-proof majority. You can only lose to the presidential level so much before it starts hurting you down ticket. And do you start worrying about the House of Representatives? Well, if Democrats were going to need 30-some seats, people thought, oh no, it's fine, it's going to be safe. Now you can't feel this way. Now, this probably is a reflection of the post-convention bump. I think it's pretty clear to say now the Democrats had a pretty darn successful convention. Will it fade? Yeah, probably. It was we're going to have 2 weeks of the Olympics foreshadowing our next Martini going on. Americans' minds will come off of politics. If Trump can, manage to not get himself into new trouble each day, things may go on. You can always have possibility of another terror attack. You can always have possibility of, God forbid, another cop shooting. Events tend to drive Trump ahead when people feel like things are out of control and there's a need for a change. If the people feel like things are going okay, then they won't be then they kind of become more comfortable with Hillary Clinton. But man, oh man, if you're a Republican, time to hit the panic button, time to break glass. And we mentioned earlier in the week there were murmurs of Republicans saying, "How do we replace Trump?" Guys, it's a little late. Some of us were arguing about this. Like, this would have been a great conversation to have before the convention, and he was officially made the Republican nominee.
Messaging hasn't been good, but what's being said now, Jim, of course, is that if we can just get Trump on message, everything's going to be fine. If we can just keep him from these side issues and keep him from picking fights with people and responding to fights with people, everything will be fine. I'm sure he'll be able to do that for 3 consecutive months.
Let's start with 3 hours and work our way up, okay?
So this intervention never happened, but maybe some of these people that like Donald Trump, like Newt and Rudy and Reince Priebus, maybe they can get the message to him via email, but it'd be very helpful if it didn't get clogged up with a lot of gunk in Donald Trump's inbox. And for that, he should probably get SaneBox. And you can get that too. SaneBox sorts through your email and moves all of the trivial stuff into a different folder. So the only messages in your inbox are the ones you actually want to see. Aside from removing all of the junk so you can focus on messages that matter, there's great features like the black hole. We've talked about that all week, where you can just drag emails from people you know you're never going to need to deal with into the black hole. You'll never hear from them again. Because we could all use more organization in our email life, we worked out a great deal for our listeners. Visit sanebox.com/martini today. They'll throw in an extra $25 in credit just by signing up through us. That's on top of the 2-week free trial. You don't have to enter your credit card information unless you decide to become a full-time customer. So there's really nothing to lose. Check it out today. Let us know if you love all these different features and getting your inbox under control. That's sanebox.com/martini. SaneBox.com/martini. And Jim, we've talked about these different folders and how SaneBox automatically knows how to divert things that you don't really need to deal with. And you might be thinking, well, how does it know that? Doesn't it ever make a mistake? And it might once in a while, but what you do is you drag it from the folder that it inadvertently went to but shouldn't have. You drag it back to your inbox, and you let it know that you do want to hear from those people and get them right in front of you. And that's called SaneBox training. So all you have to do is do a little bit of dragging, and then it learns who you want to hear from and who you don't. So it really is an intuitive feature, and it helps a lot.
Yeah, it learns quickly. Some would say it's self-aware. It's using patented Skynet technology. Nothing to fear. But seriously, it does a really good job, I've noticed so far, of figuring out which emails are important to me and which ones aren't. I have not actually had any why wasn't that in my regular email box type moments. It actually, so far has done a nice job with that. I also point out, as Greg had said, if this sounds interesting to you, go to SaneBox/Martini, because if they have a really big surge in sales this week, but it's not going through that link, they may not credit Greg and myself with that, and that would be a tragedy. So
it would be.
Please use that link.
And you don't get your $25 extra, so then it's a double tragedy. So do that at SaneBox.com/Martini. So, Jim, on to the crazy martini now. And you and I are roughly the same age, and you probably remember best. The first Olympics we probably remember best are the '84 Los Angeles Olympics. It was great because none of the commies showed up because they were all upset that we didn't go
Mary
to
Lou
Moscow.
Retton, America's sweetheart.
Yeah, Carl Lewis, Mary Lou Retton. Americans were dominating everything. Greg Louganis was big at the time. You had Evelyn Ashford, all this great stuff going on. Plus, they made a mint off the Olympics because everything was the official something of the 1984 Summer Olympics. It was fantastic. Later on, you had Barcelona. That was a fun games. On and on and on. You had to look forward to these epic athletic contests. Remember Dan versus Dave, which didn't exactly pan out because one of them didn't make the Olympics. But still, you had all these great competitions to look forward to. Michael Phelps, can he get all 8 golds in Beijing? He ended up doing it. Now what do we have to look forward to in Rio? Jim talks about this at the start of the Morning Jolt today. The International Olympic Committee has declared Rio ready, set, fit to go for the hosting of the Summer Games. But an objective view of this suggests that it's not. Just days ahead of the Olympic Games, the waterways of Rio are as filthy as ever, contaminated with raw human sewage, teeming with dangerous viruses and bacteria. According to a 16-month-long study commissioned by the Associated Press, not only are some 1,400 athletes at risk of getting violently ill in water competitions, but the AP's tests indicate that tourists also face potentially serious health risks on the golden beaches of Ipanema and Copacabana. The AP's survey of the aquatic, Olympic, and Paralympic venues has revealed consistent and dangerously high levels of viruses from the pollution, a major black eye on Rio's Olympic project that has set off alarm bells among sailors, rowers, and open water swimmers. There's also rampant crime. There were reports a few days ago, Jim, that the security situation hadn't been fully figured out yet. And, oh, by the way, there's Zika. So people are sleeping in net hoodies, basically, while they're down there. Not exactly the PR ramp-up you hoped for heading into the games.
Other than that, it's great. They do certain events before the opening ceremonies, and a couple of people don't like that, but we already do have some results. Greg, I was going to let you know that it's kind of a bit of a surprise. Australia is up on the U.S., China, and Great Britain and all the other Russia, all the traditional powers. They're up 12-0 in terms of team members who've been mugged. And they're the early lead. Very surprised. The competition in that category is going to be fierce. I'm not making that up. They had 12 members get mugged. They decided to leave their facilities because they said the toilets were backed up. There was exposed wiring and all that stuff. And of course, if you're on Twitter, check out the hashtag Rio Problems. People, as they see these reports of things just not working out, and they take pictures and they load them up onto Twitter, and it's like one part hilariously comical. Like, it's unbelievably unprepared. They're finding, somebody was showing a picture of a shower, Greg, that had 4 controls. I don't know what kind of remedial plumbing they did, but you have one shower head, and then you have 4 separate, knobs of turning it to adjust the water in 4 different corners in the wall above, below the shower head. It was just kind of very bizarre construction going on. Lots of people saying the toilets aren't working. The lines for food for the athletes is crazy long. The food options are very limited. They had to bring in water on trucks because they can't use the regular connections to pipes. The water quality for the Bay events looks terrible. Just hideous-looking pictures. And so on the one hand, you can almost laugh at it. It's unbelievably sad for these athletes who spend their entire, lives preparing for this moment. It's supposed to be their moment of glory, their moment in the sun. And, it's not just the Zika mosquitoes. It just looks like Rio has just, by and large, dropped the ball. And even the basics like security don't seem to be nailed down. Now, on top of all that, I went back and I have a piece on the homepage today. You look back, this is an early moment in the Obama administration, Greg. You probably recall Obama going to Copenhagen and making the pitch for Chicago.
Yes.
And much to the frustration of the White House and everyone in Chicago, they came in 4th out of 4, the first city eliminated. And a lot of Republicans Obama can't even close the deal. I'm going to say, actually, don't give Obama too much grief over this, because you read about accounts of what was going on in that room in the International Olympic Committee. The legendarily corrupt International Olympic Committee. That ultimately they really wanted to pick a new country, and they really believed that Brazil's time was now. It had never been a games in South America. Brazil was one of the world's 10 largest economies, and they deserved this moment on the world stage, almost a kind of a geographic affirmative action. It was due to be one in South America, entirely ignoring the question of whether Brazil was able to do this, whether Rio would be able to get ready in the amount of time they had. And now we see they could not. Rio and Brazil is known for beautiful beaches and wonderful place to get away and all that stuff, but it's not known for being not corrupt, not known for being diligent and organized. People argue about whether it still should be described as a third world country, and they're just not capable of pulling this off. And I think for the next 2 weeks, you're going to see a really embarrassing spectacle, and things really going wrong, and in part because the International Olympic Committee and in there's a strong argument made the Brazilian government were just flat out in denial for years and years about what was going to be required here. Sad, as Donald Trump would tweet.
I just got this vision of my head of Bob Costas coming on each night with additional maladies afflicting his body, and yet him talking about what a beautiful place and what a beautiful people Brazil is, and what a fabulous host they've been to the games, because they don't want all the bad parts to overshadow the achievements in the various sports. I could just picture him trying to gut it out after his pink eye fiasco.
One of the great open questions for this is how much is NBC going to discuss this stuff, because we know they want to tell the happy story of the American winning gold, and even though her dog died, and she trained hard and overcame it. We'd love to hear those stories, and they should be part of the stories of the Olympics. But the fact that the welcoming city is a basket case seems like a part of the story you can't ignore. There's apparently one report that there is open sewage 50 yards from the Olympic Village. How do you miss that? How do you not notice that? So. I hope that NBC Sports has the integrity to show us what's going wrong, as well as the happy moments. And in the piece I wrote the joke, hopefully Bob Costas will not avert his pink eye from the circumstance. But hopefully Costas comes through this okay. Everybody comes through it without Zika, without any dread gastrointestinal diseases, and things turn out okay, but it's not looking good right now.
Hey, I hope everybody brought their American Express traveler's checks, because as Carl Malden told you back in the day, those you can redeem if they get stolen. They're cash, not so much. So good luck, everyone in Rio.
That's also true for deals with Iran. To bring us
Very nice job tying it up. Jim, you are out next week. Have a great time on the road, and we'll talk to you in a week.
I will see you in a week, Greg.
Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening to the 3 Martini Lunch, brought to you again by SaneBox for your free 2-week no-obligation trial, plus an additional $25 by signing up through us here at the 3 Martini Lunch. Go to sanebox.com/martini. Have a great weekend, and join us on Monday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.